Hi folks, Rod Moore from Moore Art School again. I just want to spend a moment and talk to you about the Moore method of painting and learning how to paint. It's something we've developed at Moore Art School, and it's quite unique to us in the way that we approach helping you learn to paint. Now I have to say that I think if you've seen my video on my journey of how I learnt how to paint, I started out with watercolour, but I changed over to oil painting. And for a number of different reasons. You know, the artists that I started to really like were painting in oil and so on. So I switched over and I started looking around for teachers and mentors. And I jumped on YouTube and I found two gentlemen who, not so much what they were painting, but the way that they were going about painting and teaching how to paint really resonated with me. The first gentleman was a gentleman by the name of Bob Ross, and the other one was Bill Alexander. Now, Bill Alexander was a gentleman from Prussia, near Germany. He was born, I can't remember exactly when, but he's passed away since. But he came to America, taught himself to paint, and then developed the Alexander method of painting, okay, which was a way of doing a complete painting in around about 30 minutes. So he was really into speed painting. Now, obviously in 30 minutes there's only so much you can achieve with an oil painting, but he was producing pretty good results. And what happened was he got onto TV and started a TV show which went all around America on PBS, and he inspired millions of people to learn how to paint using his methodology. And from there he taught Bob Ross. Bob Ross also developed a TV show and inspired millions more people. And they've both since passed away in the 80s and 90s, I think it was. But if you go and look on YouTube, you'll find their videos. Okay. Now, what they were teaching was a method called the wet-on-wet method of painting. Now, you know, if you watch their videos, you would get the feeling that they created the wet-on-wet method. In reality, the wet-on-wet method's been around for hundreds of years. Okay. People have been painting alla prima for centuries. It's not something that was unique to them. However, they added their own approach to the wet-on-wet painting method, and that's what they taught and inspired people, because you know what it was? It was for the first time, it took the mystique out of what an artist does, and it gave people a step-by-step process on how they could, at home, follow along to the TV show and start creating their own paintings with very little skill. Okay, and to do it quite quickly, because most people who are starting out don't want to spend days creating a painting. If they can do one in half an hour, they're going to be happy with that. And so the Alexander Bob Ross method of wet-on-wet painting was developed and became very, very popular. So 3 years ago, I started seeing these guys on YouTube, and I thought, you know what? I'd had the experience of going to art classes and not really learning anything, and there was no methodology of teaching. And I looked at what these guys are doing, and I thought they've got a really clever methodology to take a beginner to somebody who can paint something reasonable in a short period of time. I want to learn that. So I approached Alexander Corporation and went through their certification process and became Australia's first and only certified Alexander instructor. But what I quickly realised was that that approach, whilst it was good, still has some limitations. And I started to think about an easier way of teaching people how to learn how to paint. And that's how we developed the Moore method. And we teach the Moore method in everything that we do. And basically it's the methodology of learning is what's most important. Now, we have a methodology of painting. In essence, the way we teach people to learn how to paint is to draw, step one, draw the basic outline. You don't need to be a great drawer. When you see the way I draw the outline, it's pretty rough, right? You don't need to be great. You just need to place the main objects where they need to be in the painting. So that's step one. Step two then is to block in the main colours in those big shapes, right? Pretty simple. And then step three is to finesse the details. So you're putting the highlights on things like trees. You're putting details in the foreground, branches, sunlight hitting the clouds, things like that. It's finessing, right? So step one is to draw in the big shapes, and you don't need to do that accurately, just placement. Step two is to block in the main colours. Step three is the details, the highlights, the finishing, and the finessing, okay? 3 steps. And that's the way we teach painting at the Moore Art School. We teach 3 simple steps. That's all you need to know. So it's a little bit different from the way that Bob Ross and Bill Alexander taught it, but obviously we've taken what we learned from them and we've used that as a platform to improve the methodology, because really they were teaching that back in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and there's been no real development from what they taught back then. Okay, we're now taking it to another step, We're teaching 3 simple steps. Basic drawing, place the big shapes, the blocking, and then the finishing details, the finessing, right? If you follow those 3 steps in every painting you do, your painting's going to improve. And that's why so many people are attracted to the More method of painting and to More Art School, is because those steps are quite easy when you understand how to break them down. Now, the other aspect of the More method is the way that we go about teaching you. Because what people need is they need a step-by-step process of learning, and where each step builds on the previous step. Okay, there's no point having steps that are completely disjointed. You need a step that builds on the previous step that you learned, so that your knowledge and your skill is building incrementally over time. And over a period of time, you'll develop enough knowledge and skills where you won't need us anymore. You'll go out and you'll just be able to create paintings intuitively, because it'll be ingrained into your own conscious mind on how to create a painting. But you need that step-by-step methodology initially, right? It's a bit like learning your times table or how to spell. You get it drilled into you over and over again. You need that repetition. So all of our courses are structured around teaching you the next step. And then you go and do that step, and then we give you feedback, an evaluation and a critique of how you've gone with that step, so that you can improve. And then when you've got that step right, we go to the next step, right? And then we go to the next step, and so on. So you'll notice with our online classes, for instance, we have a painting landscapes level 1, a level 2, and a level 3, right? You don't do level 3 until you've done levels 1 and 2. And you don't do level 2 until you've done level 1, because they each build on each other, okay? And then within our level 1 program, 6-week program, week 1 leads to week 2. You wouldn't do week 2 without having done week 1, because it builds on each step by step by step. Really important that you understand that. Our methodology of teaching people how to paint has been 100% successful. I think in a previous video I talked about how you can learn to paint, and we guarantee it if you follow our methodology. We offer a 100% money back guarantee if you're not happy with the painting that you've done through our online art classes or one of our workshops. And you know what? Never had a single person ever ask for their money back. 100% of them have been happy with the results, those that have gone and actually completed the exercises. Now, if you don't do the work, if you don't do the exercises, of course, you're not going to create anything, right? You're not going to improve. But for those of you who are serious about learning how to paint, and you do the work and you follow through our methodology, and you follow the steps, and each step builds on the next one, you will improve as a painter, and you'll be so excited and so inspired about the paintings that you're doing that you won't need to ask for your money back, because you'll be 100% happy, just like all of our other students. So the More method really is a very effective and powerful way for you to learn how to paint. It's very different from what everyone else is teaching, and our process will help you get started painting quicker than what you thought might be possible. So I hope you come and join us in an online art class or at one of our workshops soon, and I look forward to seeing you progress as a painter. And until then, happy painting.